What kind of how would they find your organization? And were they kids that were having issues, or was it just all kinds of kids?
Yeah, it was mostly from lower incomes,
Mm,
kids struggling, single parent households.
great, great,
There was a big cohort of men from the Mankind Project, who'd have sons
great.
at that age, and those kids would be there. So, yeah, we would go out to different city service
Wow.
agencies. It started in San Diego, and
Yeah.
it came up here. Me and another guy brought it
Uh-huh.
up here. He had a teenage son, so that's how I got involved in
Wow.
it. And now it's an international organization, and
Yeah,
it's
I've
still
heard of it.
small,
Yeah.
but it at least this was back 20 years ago when I did that. So I'm not sure where it's
Wow.
at right now, but it is still going on. Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
they
have
probably got
heard
an
of it.
LA chapter and such. But
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a it mainly opened my eyes to how yeah, we've got lost generations of boys and girls who
Yes.
are not attached to their soul, to their being, to the
That's right.
truth, to their values,
That's
to
right.
uh, aspirations, to their inner
That's right.
truth of who they are. So
Sad. It's sad.
that's yeah, I worry for this generation
Me
terribly. I
too.
have no idea how they are going to keep it together, put it together,
They're not.
be adults, have children, raise a family. I mean,
They're
like
not. They're not.
they don't
It's
have
the
the
internet.
capability.
No, it's the internet. It's literally TikTok and you're trans and anyone could be trans. It's so dangerous what is happening, you know? It's why I won't stop speaking out. It's why I will continue to say I don't care. That's not community to me. There is an actual indoctrination of little girls, okay? The boys, different thing. I'm not really connected to that as much, but the young girls, I see it all because my own stuff and dealing with my own kind of stuff, but they're not giving these young girls a chance. They're just immediately transing them. It's insane.
It's a criminal
Yes.
too, and
Yes.
it's. I
Yes.
mean, they push the whole idea of non-binary. Well, why don't they just get it and say, yeah, okay, so until you're 18, just be non-binary,
There
and
you go.
you don't need to go through the chemical,
Mm-mm.
irreversible changes in your body. You don't
Wow.
need to treat puberty like a disease that you have to stop.
That's so
And it
gross.
is, and all of the harms that have to go along with that.
Yes.
It's not just a
Yes.
surgical cosmetic procedure you're talking
No.
about. You're to become a woman, you're not going to it's so cut way beyond the complexity to really be able to actually do that. You can make
That's
some
right.
cosmetic alterations as an adult. You get to choose that. You get
That's
to
right.
pursue that if that's your path. But
That's right.
I think it should and gender affirming care. I mean, it's that's a criminal operation as
It
well.
totally is. Yep, it totally is. We that's why we need to get together. You as a professional and me as somebody who did this such a long time ago. That's why we have to build bridges with each other and start to really put our voices in the mix, even if people hate us, whatever that even means, right? The kids will thank us in 5 to 10 years. They will turn around and see you and I, and they will say they cared about us because those people, they don't care
Mm.
about those. They're like trash to them. So even when we have a large population, even though they try to hide it, of detransitioners, that's an actual real thing happening. Yet they're like, it's not happening. It's shocking.
They deny everything that objects or points out the flaws in
Yes.
their operation, and
Yes.
they bully their way past.
That's right.
I mean, I think it's been a long trail from the '70s when they did Title
Mm,
IX, and that opened the door through the
mhm.
educational system and indoctrination system that started feeding all of the
Yes.
teaching student people who are going into teaching and education. Uh, all of this stuff got filtered into that system, and now the
Right.
teachers are locked in and bringing all of that ideology,
Yes.
postmodernism, identity politics,
Wow.
trans queer ideology,
That's
all
right.
that is being taught to the kids. Plus, social media is
That's right.
dominating with that as well. But it just is, having trans uh, trans strippers or cross-dressing strippers in there. I mean, I thought like, hey, how come my straight teenage kid or this middle school kid aren't we getting the Hooters gal down and bringing them in? That's to be fair,
I know. It's so
but
crazy. No, and everyone's just like, it's normal. Look, I come from the sex world. It's not normal when teenage kids are being taught shit by drag queens and like and like really they're only pushing the LGBTQIA bullshit. What about other stuff? How come it's only about LGBT? And as a member of that situation for not really anymore, I left. But that being said, I will say that I do not believe kids, they should know their gay people exist, trans people exist, and now let's move on. Because it should never be the forefront of what these kids are learning, ever, ever.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, part of the problem tangent to this is the lack of sex education or the avoidance of sex education,
Great,
starting,
great.
say, in middle school, appropriate sex
That's right.
education that does introduce here's what we know about sexuality. There's
That's
straight,
right.
gay, lesbian, bi,
That's right.
and
Yes.
transsexuals. Gender is another story.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that maybe. And, I mean, you
Yeah.
don't need to do
No.
more than that at that
That's right.
stage,
That's right.
before high school to really get
That's right.
them hot. I mean, they're already going to be getting it again from social media, no matter
That's
what
right. Yep.
they
Yep.
do. So they just need straight information. This was a thing when I was talking about boys to men.
Yeah.
When I began with it, the first meeting, the first weekend, the leaders came up from San Diego,
Yeah.
we organized here, and we're going through the outline of the weekend, a
Yeah.
very amazing, extensive outline. But then on Sunday we get to noon, cock talk, and
Great.
I right
Great.
on,
Great.
we want to be men leading, initiating
Yes.
boys. We can't avoid talking about sex
Nope.
and introducing that.
That's
But
right.
when the leaders got to that part of the outline, they said, sex talk. Well, this is always kind of awkward, and we don't know what
Hmm.
to say. They don't know what to say, and
Hmm.
so we'll probably maybe we'll just scratch it off. And I stood up and said, "No, I'll
Excellent.
take it. I'll do it." And
Excellent.
uh, yeah, it was like ridiculous. We're trying to teach them authenticity and be true to themselves and be
That's right.
honest and we're not going to talk about sex. What are we modeling here if that's where we are at around
Also, if you're making
sexuality?
things secret and you're making things like weird, because it's not weird. Sex isn't weird. Sex is natural. 13-year-old kids start playing around, even maybe younger they do, right? We've all done it. We
Sure.
were all there. It is so bizarre to me that people, also in that kind of environment, I get it. What I don't, and I also think at school they should teach basic sex ed. I 100% believe that, but I think it needs to be in a very structured environment, penis, vagina, sex, periods, not all this other insane, Tommy wants to be Susie and has a cock in the mouth of, I'm like, what? Yeah, you can't fucking teach that to 13-year-old kids. Well, you can, I'm 62. When I was in school, I remember we had sex ed in sixth grade and we got to watch films of, certain little pregnancy and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so what's the difference? I was in the 70s. And now all of a sudden, like, we can't talk about sex, just normal. Like you just said, you've got to talk about boys and their penises, especially boys. I think boys mature a little bit faster than girls when it comes to
Yeah.
sex.
And
Yeah.
this was a group of boys, and so I started with the question once we were in a
Yeah.
teepee out in the
Yeah.
wild somewhere, and of what's the right age for you to have sex.
Great. Great.
And that just started it off. You know,
Yep.
Everybody had an opinion. They chirped right in, and and
Excellent.
it ranged from I already have a kid,
Hmm.
16-year
Wow.
old guy, because they're
Yeah.
talking about,
Of course.
sex, yeah, getting it, and then nobody
Hmm.
was talking about pregnancy, and then this one kid
Wow.
brought it out. Well, you can't
Wow.
get somebody pregnant, and uh,
Wow.
here's an example. And then another guy was, I'm a virgin, and I'm gonna stay that way till I get married,
Excellent.
uh, and it was just you know, we were laughing and talking. I mean, it was just a talk, and
Yes, that's
it
right.
brought everybody. It was on a topic that is normally, yeah, oh, it's awkward to know what to say. That's
Yeah,
how it's
that's right.
typically handled. There are people
Hmm.
because people are so afraid of sexuality
That's right.
that this is how we deal with it as adults. We avoid it, we bury it, we don't discuss it,
Yes.
or we project and get hysterical about someone
Yes,
else's sex uh,
that's right.
without even ever having done our own. This is why I developed something I call sexual integration
Hmm.
therapy, and it's a client-centered, non-pathologizing
Mm.
uh, approach to dealing with sexual concerns, such as compulsive use of porn or sex or
Sure.
anything
Great.
else, of to help
Great.
you first claim your authentic sexual nature.
Hmm.
That's the first step. It's not stop looking at porn. That's the problem. It's looking at porn compulsively is the symptom of a problem. It's
Th-
not the problem.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I know everybody wants to make porn the problem. No, because I'm sure people had some compulsion before that. Maybe it was magazines, right?
Oh,
Maybe it was
yeah.
other kinds of
Or
things.
Instagram or X, or it's screen addiction
It's
is
screen
what we're
addiction. But
suffering
I also
from.
think people prior to even the screen, I would say, maybe back in the day, but men and women are different around sex, as you know, and especially around pornography. And I was a lot around the gay men's industry, and there's such a highly charged sexual space, the gay men's sex space that I was actually, invited into, and I never made a big deal about being a trans. It was just I was invited into. Anyway, my point being is I saw sexual charge that you'll never ever see in a woman's space ever. And
Hmm.
I've walked both of those spaces, so I really do think men on some level have been sexually charged. They used to buy magazines, all the gay porn magazines, but now the screen just opened it to anybody and everybody. It's very dangerous behavior, very dangerous.
What do you mean by what is
The,
the dangerous part?
the dangerous part to me is that it's too accessible to young people, and also
Uh-huh.
I don't know if there's a thing such thing as porn addiction. I don't know if that's actually true. I think what you get addicted to is that image coming at you, right? Is it the porn, or is it the accessibility of the porn? And I don't
Yeah.
think we talk a lot about that because they're going to jack off anyway. That's just normal. Some people are highly
Right. You're
charged
gonna
and
find, yeah,
yeah,
if you well that's there is and I'm a sex researcher
yeah,
also, so I've published papers and do research on things
yeah.
and my own uh evaluation. Yeah, 70 something like yeah, 75% of the people were masturbating in this one survey. About 1,200 people were
Yeah,
masturbating weekly, three
yeah,
times, daily. Actually, I mean,
sure,
there was
sure,
daily, there was weekly, there was
sure.
monthly. This range, and so
Yeah,
that. But yeah, so yeah, men's sexuality has
just a whole
taken a
other
beating.
animal. It's a whole other
Hmm.
animal, and I do believe it's through because a lot of it testosterone. Because my I already had a high libido as a female, but when I started to take the testosterone, my libido did go up tremendously, where I
Hmm.
could say that I was masturbating for a while there on a daily basis. And I'm not sure, I didn't feel uncomfortable by it. I didn't feel that it
No,
took away
I
from
was,
my
yeah,
day.
I'm like, well, there's that edge of people who are
Yeah,
daily
yeah,
is their normal.
it's
They just happen to
normal.
be there. They can manage it. They can handle it,
That's right.
and they squeeze
Yes.
it in just to when they get a moment, and
But I
then
think
the
women
day goes
don't. I
on.
think what it is also is women don't understand it because it's the women to me who are the ones saying, "Oh, these people have porn addictions, or it's porn because their husband might watch porn, or they might feel excluded." So it becomes a personal thing for women, I think, and then they feel left out if the husband is maybe watching porn. I think it gets more deeply into
Yeah,
this
again,
space,
that's
right?
not about the porn. That's about the relationship.
That's right. But they'll never say that. They'll never say that. They will only say it's nope,
Yeah,
that's not true. Or I'm
porn
like,
is
wait,
the scapegoat
porn
to
is
it,
the
but
scapegoat. That's right.
mhm.
Totally. I completely agree with that. And
And it's a power leverage too.
yes,
Once there's this
yes.
fall from grace, I mean, this is the one of the things I in my sexual integration therapy, there's this thing called sexual authenticity disorder, which
Okay.
is the fear of revealing or others discovering the true
Mm,
depths, nature, style, frequency
wow.
of your sexuality. So
Right.
we're in a crisis of people leading secret sex lives because they're afraid to be honest, afraid to reveal that
Yes.
because they might
Yes.
get scorned, ostracized, divorced,
Yes.
fired, etc.
Yes.
So we have this. That's a new book I'm working on called "People Leading Secret Sex Lives,"
Wow.
uh,
Great.
but it is based on this premise that you should be you have a birthright as a human being, and this is
Yeah.
what sexual integration therapy is
Yeah.
about: empowering you to embrace that
Yes.
right,
Yes.
embrace the pleasure of that right
Yes.
on the one hand, and now untangle all the shame, fear, trauma, and such that
Fantastic.
has made you unable to express it honestly. So it's a
Wow.
disempowered sexuality is what most people have. They don't know how to bring it into the world in an authentic, honest, transparent way that's in integrity with their values, agreements, and responsibilities.
Great. I, I think it's a lot of the problems today. I'm going to go back to trans, which I think a lot of the problems with a lot of these older people transitioning, I also think that they have shame around their own sexuality. So instead of just saying I'm a gay man, they want to become a woman. I really believe, and I also think with young girls, they're really feeling shamed around their own sexuality because I do have when I'm reading statistics or things that a lot of these young girls who do come out of the transition and detransition were just gay girls, but they were like hiding this, and then all of a sudden they're not having sex. And I'm like, what? And then they're desexualizing these young people by giving them puberty blockers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
which actually
Right. They're
literally
making him
desexual.
sexually dysfunctional.
It is
You,
actually mind blowing to me that nobody sees this. I'm like, you are literally like desexualizing a whole population of young girls who are now going to grow up with no functioning sexual space
yeah. And sterilizing them
and
too. Uh,
sterilizing them. Wow.
so there's kind of a dead end uh, path being generated by
What
that.
is that
Um,
mean though? What does that mean for the future of these young girls? Because they're going to come out of it. You can't live in a false space for a long time. You
mm,
just can't. Eventually, your brain is going to go, "Oh, I'm not really a man." Like, and why did I cut my boobs off? And why did they give me? What is going to happen to these young girls when they start coming? I mean, I already know like 100 of them. Literally, I know 100 of them, and they're all
mm,
just fucked up. They're just completely like it's actually the most.
yeah, it's like they were given lobotomies in the 50s or something.
That's
It's
right.
like
That's
somebody
right.
thought, "Oh, that's a good idea. That'll work. That's going to help them." Uh,
It,
and it's such a there's such a shadow
oh my
to
God.
that whole movement that is, oh, we have to save the children from suicide and a miserable
Wow.
life and
Wow.
everything. And the truth is, the darkness of the truth is like horrifying to what that has really entailed. But I think it's the tide has turned
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
with Trump, with that ruling by the UK Supreme Court. Uh,
That's right.
and other actions that are going on
Yes.
of there is pushback now. There are people
Yes.
who are able to speak and push back without just getting instantly canceled and shut down, and that
Sure.
their voices are rising up and are being well accepted now,
Yes.
and they're not being pushed down and hidden.
That's
So
right.
it's and legislation and certain other things are
But the
going
problem
in. I mean,
that's
but here's the problem. The thing I think that needs some delicacy or
yeah.
care, though, is
Sure.
uh, I'm not an expert in the field of
Yeah.
transgender. From a part of my old instinct, anyway, is clearly no, it's not a thing. It's really a psychological or it's a
That's
political
right.
ideology that has gotten break the
Yep.
binary, and it's a left wing neo Marxist political ideology that's
Bam.
infiltrated
Right.
this medical condition,
That's
psychological
right.
condition
That's right.
that instead of being informed, yeah, you have a mental condition, not a biological, not an
That's right.
inherent condition that
Yes.
is uh, there. But and as I said, as you said, many of the LGBT plus T people have said of they're eliminating the possibility of being gay or lesbian
Yes.
or
They
bi
are.
in that
Yes.
whole equation.
They are. That's literally what it's a homophobic. Really do believe it's a homophobic movement. As someone who's, the thing is, that's why they can't. That's why they're very fearful of me because they can't. I have a huge amount of experience with this transition, a huge amount, as well as a huge amount of experience just living in the world, right? And before my
Mhm.
transition as a gay woman and experiencing all of those things, it's why I know that trans it's an agenda, it's an ideology, it's everything you just said. It's literally trying to like sort of put this idea in people's heads. But the thing that really blows my mind is how powerful it became. And I really rack my brain of how could something this illogical take capture of so many people, right?
Well, I mentioned before we started recording that idea of the Department of Education and the whole educational system and
Yeah.
the
Okay.
universities that
Oh,
graduate teachers.
right.
Once the Title
Right.
IX began and all the neo-Marxist,
Okay.
postmodernist things come in and Foucault and all these people in
Yes.
the universities, it
Yes.
started evolving
That's right.
a couple generations of
Oh.
teachers at the high school, grade school, middle school, who have all been kind of injected with this uh, ideology, queer
Academia.
ideology. Yeah, exactly. It was a
Academia.
political ideology that they
Yeah. That's
felt
right.
the way to get the patriarchy is demasculate uh, boys and masculate girls,
It's
and
twisted. It's so twisted, man. Like all I can do is laugh because I'm just like it, but it is. You're right. It's like Judith Butler, all those wing nuts, just shoving that in. For a while, I'll be honest. I was kind of all for trans kids 10 or so years ago, maybe even less. I was all for transition. It was all like until it just hit like some plateau for me that I was like, wait a minute here.
mhm,
Wait, this is not right. There's too many young kids. I think the was for me was the number of young children under the age of 18 who were claiming to be trans. That was really my point where I had to step back for a moment and go, okay, this is not the same as me. This is something way more
mhm,
drastic that's really gotten twisted and weird.
yeah. So, and in its place, let's say, if this trans something is transitioning away from the ideological part, but you're
Yeah,
back to the human part of these young people who, in one of my surveys, it was like something like 70% of the people, their eros was activated by the age of 10 years old. You
okay.
know,
Wow.
this was in a maybe a more sex
Wow.
positive
Sure.
population that I was speaking of, but it
Yeah.
was no doubt that, and I have known this because myself, by five
Yeah.
years old, I was already on the hunt, so
Yes.
to speak.
Yes.
But I hadn't even reached puberty yet. So the
Wow.
question, though, is for I think if this whole thing stopped and went back to the way it was, most of these kids, as you said, would come on a path of being gay or
Totally.
lesbian or bi.
Totally.
But I think my opinion, I want to hear yours on this, is that there's really just straight and gay on
Uh-huh.
the spectrum. You
Sure.
either and
Yes.
there's a range in between
Sure.
those two, but
Yes.
you either gonna be straight, gay, or lesbian.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right.
and the very feminine gay men
Uh-huh.
are the people who are probably now everybody's calling them trans, and they're happy
That's
to
right.
be that. That's somehow they
Yes.
have a psychological basis in themselves. They can
Yes.
mirror. They're like mimics of like birds that can do the different calls they can do,
Yeah, great.
that
Yeah.
uh, feminine, Stepford
Yeah.
wife
Totally.
character, and some, as best they can, and some are can
Mm,
be. I mean, clearly some of the transsexual or
mm.
even transgender women
Yeah.
are pretty fucking hot,
Oh, they
really,
are. They look
you
amazing.
know.
Totally.
But
100%.
that's the cream of the crop, say. But that's
Yes.
not true for the whole
No.
ball
No.
game
Not
at all.
even, man. Not even. Those ones make a huge effort. A lot of my friends are more I call those transsexuals. The transgender ones are the ones who are not really making the effort to
Yeah.
blend in. Yeah.
But so that's how I look at it. I think that if you just got rid of transgender and just went back to like, okay, there's very feminine guys, there's very
That's right.
masculine women,
Yes.
and for an
Yes.
adult, you can do whatever you want about how
That's
you
right.
want to appear,
That's right.
and it's not a political ideology
It's
anymore, and nobody
not.
else has to conform to your personal expectations that you want the rest of the world to adapt to.
It's
Uh,
crazy. It's crazy. No, they've literally gone backwards. Everything that we fought for as elder transsexuals, we really just wanted to get back into the world and say, oh, this helped me. I can function properly. But they really rolled it back because they went back onto stereotypes, right? A feminine man must be trans, right? But the thing that's so interesting to me is on the male side, yeah, it's all these feminine men who are probably just gay men taking on this trans identity. But a lot of the girls, it's shocking to me. They're not masculine. A lot of the girls are
no.
still very feminine. And I'm like, but wait, that's so weird to me that they want to be men, yet they're not even presenting as men. They're still presenting very female.
Well, that's how, they got their brains kind of scrambled in non-binary
Yeah.
world. You can be whatever
Yeah.
you want. You can just, and plus it
Wow.
promoting, as far as I can see, a very unhealthy
That's
lifestyle.
right. That's
These
right.
people are not into any level of fitness or
Nope.
diet, healthy
That's
eating
right.
and all that such, at least as far as I can see. I don't know
It's
all that
true.
personally, but it just looks pretty clear that
Yeah.
they're out of shape. They're not,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
the life force is
I mean, that was
not
one of the
there.
yeah, that was one of the major things. As you know, I'm not, maybe I don't know, but I'm totally a fitness person, and that was always my goal was to be able to take my clothes off and just have a masculinized, muscly body, and to really present male. So the other thing I wanted to say was also the top surgery, right, which is the cutting off of the breasts. We always aspired to be able to get it to where there were no scars. I don't have any scars because I really did my research with my doctor and I really made a huge. This was 30
Hmm.
years ago I had this, right? So fast forward today, what do you see? You see the
Oh
most
yeah,
insane shit like it's shocking. It's mutilation. That is actual literally ripping the kid's breasts
literally
off.
mutilation. This
Oh,
is what it's a
oh,
criminal action again to be
there you go.
mutilating healthy
Holy shit.
tissue
Holy shit.
like that. And plus, it's almost like either it shows how unskilled they're allowing people to be doing the surgeries for,
Yep.
and they don't give a shit anyway. And also,
Nope.
but it's almost like the look. Hey, look at my fucking scars,
That's
Mine
right.
are fucking worse than you. I'm ugly as fucking shit now, man. Who's gonna top that?
Oh my God, dude. If I don't laugh, I'm going to cry because you're so right. It's like, who can have the worst fucked up nipples are here, or there's no nipples, or
Mhm.
it's like the scar from hell. No, it's exactly, I did a video on it and I said it's the branding of trans now. They're branding themselves like
Yeah.
it's body modification. They're like proud to have these scars and they're proud to sort of that's why I told you it changed from a person like me who wants to blend in and be as masculine and where no one would ever notice. Now they want to
Mhm.
be noticed and they want to be trans. It's a whole other psychological, it's like a
Yeah.
psychological
Well, they're
illness.
getting a little juice of it out of the internet hits and likes
Right.
and such, and that's
That's right.
that's their community is these
Yes.
digital worlds. They don't have any friend. I mean, their
No.
social life is not. They're not in a tribe where they're like
Nope.
rocking out and doing this.
Nope.
They're isolate digital, loners.
Wow. Wow. What happens when that goes away? Then those kids will be just like with nothing.
Yeah, it's scary what the
Oh,
path they're being led down in these little corners. We don't really know. I don't think there's any enough research, and nobody's paying
mm-mm,
enough attention. But
no.
that's an important thing to what really is going on in the lives
Yes,
of our young people
that's right.
now. Of they get a little bit of glamour, a little glory, a little few hits on the screen, and it's keeping them alive.
It's
But
like
when it
cocaine. They're like snorting cocaine, but it's
right
trans,
every
right?
day,
Yeah,
I got to
totally.
get something up
Yep,
because I need
yep.
the validation and the
It's so
a
true.
little bit of love. Uh,
Oh man, it's a shame. It really is. It just breaks my heart. It does. It breaks my heart for these kids who hate me. They all hate me, which is good.
right.
Grandpa, I'm grandpa. They all hate grandpa. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Sit down and shut up. And
Mm.
let me just tell you how this is.
Is that 100? Do you get some young people who
Oh no,
go, "Wow, I
I'm
like to
kind of
hear what you're
exaggerating.
saying"? There.
Yeah, no, I'd say the majority of the young kids don't like me, but I would say I'm masking a newer generation of young kids who do like me, and I can see it starting to grow, and I can see that they're starting to see what I'm saying, and I have kids write me and say thank you. Well, they call me Trampa. Thank you, Trampa, because
Uh-huh.
I actually didn't transition. I listened to you, and I decided that I'm not trans, and that I talk to parents. I'm not a doctor, as you know, but I'll have that's my community service. And I will get on Zoom with parents and I'll just say, look, I'm not a doctor, but let me just tell you something, kiddo. Why don't you give it a year before you get top surgery, before you do all that stuff?
Hmm.
And why don't you get off of TikTok? And then I always tell the parent, and literally five kids literally didn't transition because I told the mom, get them off TikTok if you can get them into a different school and take them away to camp or something. They all came back to being
Hmm.
girls, all of them. It was like, I knew it. I totally knew it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think little by little they're starting to see that I care about them and that I'm only here. If you want to transition when you're 20, go for it, kiddo. It's always going to be there. But why at 16 are you in such a
Hmm.
rush to take your boobs off?
Well,
Like,
you're such an important voice in that conversation. You're the voice of experience. You
thank
got the
you.
cred.
Yeah.
You've done the work and you've done your own work. It's clear,
Yeah.
you have a grounded sensibility, and
Yes.
this is really a very important messaging for these younger kids to
Oh,
hear from
shocking.
an elder, a wise elder, a wild elder
Yeah,
who's
but it's the disingenuous older trans women who totally like Lily Tino and all of them. They're like, don't listen to Buck. He's transphobic. I could always see them trying to block me. They're literally trying to
mhm,
block me from them. And that's where I'm like, oh, we got some bad trans women. They're mostly trans women doing this to me. And like, stay away from Buck. He's transphobic or and I'm just thinking,
mhm.
don't people, and I really do believe some of these are pedophiles. I have no doubt they're grooming pedophile weirdos who are literally after these young kids. I just see something about it that really
Yeah,
gives me that feeling.
there's a few of those influencers who definitely got that vibe to them. It's so
100%.
cringy.
Oh, it's
The guy
so
Jeffrey Marsh
he's a groomer.
goes
He's a groomer. Totally. No
hair on the
doubt.
back of the neck stands up and
I know. I'm like, don't
you're
ever let me.
just so
If I ever see, I think he lives in my town in LA, and I swear to God,
uh,
man, if I don't know how I'll control myself if I see him, and not that I'm gonna punch him, but I'm just gonna be that asshole in public.
yeah.
Like I won't be able to hold myself because he's just so lucky. I just can't stand him. Yeah.
Yeah, you brought up that in kind of tangent to this in terms of pedophiles. I just got invited, asked, and got interviewed and accepted to be a provider for people in the MAPS category.
Oh
And
wow.
so
Oh
I'm curious to see
wow.
how I've had a lot of thoughts about that because I
Sure.
wrote a
Sure.
paper on fetish sexual, what I call fetish sexuality, which is a kink
Great.
orientation that
Great.
makes the argument that kink should be considered a valid sexual orientation
Yeah.
that's related to power exchange, not gender. But it's
Excellent.
clearly a prevalent dynamic of
It
people who are
is.
drawn to archetypal, mythic, symbolic, erotic enactments that
That's right.
are already innate in them. You talk about early development of sexuality.
Yes.
I think heterosexuals are often activated before puberty. Because they're
Yes.
in a fantasy level. of
Totally agree.
eros, not just friction sex.
Yes.
So they are, if you're a fetosexual, that does come alive before
Okay.
puberty activates and you are
Wow.
engaging these from the within.
Okay.
You can be dominant or submissive. Some
Uh-huh.
level of this power exchange dynamic is going on
Okay.
uh, there. And it's for a high prevalence of people, like 60% before 10,
Wow.
were already masturbating to their fantasies and doing
Yeah.
this and that,
Yeah.
et cetera. So, but I'm curious in the in the kink realm, there's a
Yeah.
well established, one of the more popular
Mhm.
kinks is age play or daddy
Right.
daughter
That's right.
play.
Yes.
So I'm curious if there is a correlation between a kinkster who's, yeah, I'm a hot daddy, I want a hot little
Sure.
girl to play with,
Yeah.
and they understand that this is not my real mom or real dad. This is a mythic figure that
Yes.
is daddy and a mythic daughter, et cetera, that
Yes.
are in a ritual way, as I view it, can come
Yes.
together and really embody these two authentic dynamics
Yes.
that they hold as the daddy and daughter and have the
Hmm.
fucking hottest sex of
That's
their
right.
life if they're
That's
well
right.
matched
Yes.
anyway. So I'm curious, could it be possible that maps oriented people just don't get that? Oh, you have a kink. You want to have sex with underage kids. Well,
Great.
you can
Great point.
find an adult woman who can embody and hold space
Yes.
and be that 12-year-old girl and
Yes.
fully do it. And would that, if that could help you avoid going to jail, ruining your
Right.
life, ruining
Right.
someone else's life,
Right.
could that would they go, oh, really? Oh, that'd be great. I even took it further and said there should be if the world was right,
Uh,
we would have a legal process for them to get
help.
12 therapy sessions a month from a surrogate
That's
who
right.
they could engage
But
with, and that would
I think
cause less recidivism and
that's
or
right.
acting out.
I think you're really coming from such a great heart in talking about that. And as you know, it's a very difficult subject to talk about. You can't really talk about it publicly because people just do not want to talk about it in any way, shape, or form. And also, we do have a lot more people, I think, who are actual pedophiles. And, whatever that is, I do believe it's a mental illness. And I do believe that these people cannot hold themselves without. Now, your idea is a great idea, but I wonder if it would work only because, and that's why we need to study. We need to study, like, to me, we have to study serial killers. We need to study people who are outside of the
Mhm.
realm of society. Because if we don't study them and we just kill them all, then they're going to keep coming. And we're not understanding why this situation is there. And of course, people will argue with you, is it a sexuality? Of course they will. But that being said, I'm not versed enough to say whether or not it is or not. But what I do think is that if we don't start to kind of try, instead of just shutting it down, we're not going to talk about it, it's not going to go away. You know what I mean? It's just not, just like transsexuals. We're not going to go
No.
away. We're
It's
only
a
going to,
hysterical reaction. It's like reefer
yes,
madness.
that's right.
Oh no, they're
That's
gonna
right. But the
this and
problem is this opened up the fucking pedophile space or maps, whatever you want to call them, to a bigger space and much more easier for them to network. Now that being said, I think it's such a genius idea if we could offer them that it's a fantasy, because I don't know if it's a fantasy, and I don't know if you do either, because I don't
right.
think we have enough
Well, like you
studies.
mentioned, I think it's a spec. There could be I look at it, there's
Yes,
probably a spectrum. There might
spectrum.
be the
Yes,
helpless. You can't do anything about it. These are just fucking predator
yes,
level section
yes,
of these people. But there
yes,
could be, like you see those that old program with one of these 60 minutes type
yes.
guys who would do setups of they
Totally,
the perp would walk in thinking he's got the 14-year-old in there and
totally.
Chris Hansen from da, da, da.
That's right.
Well,
That's
what are you
right.
doing here? And I mean, I
That's
think,
right.
and you see these guys are like, they're not fucking
Yeah.
dangerous predators. They're just
No.
stupid fucks who
Stupid.
got fell
Yep.
for something that
That's
they
right.
desperately yearned for.
Yeah.
So those kind of people, I think, could be guided into different
Yes.
pathways. Like, because,
Yes.
oh, you get on, you want to be on that TV program in front of the whole fucking world and then your
My
life is
God.
ruined? Or would you rather just find an adult consensual
Yes.
interaction that could satisfy or partly, to a good enough extent,
That's right.
satisfy
You know,
that
I was talking
urge?
about that actually with my partner, not because we talk about it, but somehow we got on the conversation. Oh, I remember because I was at one of my conferences for sex toys, and then now they have all these sex dolls, right? They look real. They look like actual real
Mm.
humans, and it's crazy. And then there was a baby, and I was like, oh my
Uh-huh.
God, there's a
Like
baby
a
doll.
sex toy baby?
Yes, yes. And I
Wow.
was like, holy shit. But then I was like, but actually, could this be like the, thing that would
Exactly.
keep them away from actual real babies? And even though it sounds creepy and fucked up, I mean, the reality is we're never going to get rid of them. They're always going to be here. There's always going to be somebody
Yeah,
who
I mean, the
has
point
that.
is avoid harm, reduce
That's
harm.
right. That's
If you
right.
could give them a little sex doll that to their liking, what do
That's
you
right.
want it to look like?
That's
And
right.
then he'd be, oh, fuck yeah,
Yeah, totally. Totally.
I'd be
100%.
right on this thing all day long.
All day
Uh,
long. And even like incel dudes getting them a fucking doll. Just go have your doll and like you got it to your girlfriend or whatever and you're good,
mm,
dude. I mean,
yeah,
so the problem I think that I had is they started trying to put maps under the LGBT community, which, I come from old school gay where they were trying to do the back in the day, NAMBLA, I think it was, the National.
man, boy, love
Yeah, totally. And
organization. I think it
we got
was.
everyone got freaked out because we're not, that's no. There's a difference between fantasy, which is what you just said. As you know, Daddy Boy is big in the gay men's world, but they're adults and they're consensual and it's a fantasy land. But we're not gonna have we're already get busted, for being perverted weirdos. So yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
fine line to walk there. And we can't discount they exist, but I just don't want to be connected to that because it is
yeah.
a,
It makes me nervous to speak of it
exactly,
and
exactly.
move in because I know that. Well,
Yes,
and this is the same thing. Kink is even lower below the radar than trans or queer is,
yes,
but it gets thrown in as a caricature,
that's right. That's
hysterical
right.
here of, oh, they are into
That's
kink,
right.
and uh, it's also where I would speculate that if an attack on porn comes, it's going to be over kink oriented porn because that's the most
It already has. There's already that's a huge, it already,
creepy, like weird looking. If you
that's
don't
right.
understand it, it's just, oh my God, it's horror and cruelty and abuse
That's
and
right. They don't.
misogynistic and
All of it,
all
all
those
of
kind
it,
of shit.
all of it. I've been in it and I've been around it, and I know how people feel about kink, and they don't. But I'm like, why? It doesn't matter. You don't have to watch. It's literally between as long as to me, consent, right? And keeping kids and
Yeah.
that
Two
animals,
adults can choose
do
whatever the
whatever
fuck
you
they
want,
want to
man.
do.
That's right. I don't.
Risk aware, you go at it, you could get fucked, could be a bad moment, but
That's
you
right.
adult, you get to choose
That's
your
right.
risks and what you
And
pursue.
that should
You
be
know,
completely
People go
okay.
bungee jumping and skydiving, what the fuck?
I know. What's the difference? It's literally a kink. So yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to me, but I think the whole reason we're meeting is because you were saying how her name is Miss Lister. She was on my thing and she was talking about the LGBTQIA blah 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 and she said something about kink. Did she not? What did she say?
Well, when she brought in the maps, she kind of
Maps.
then turned it into, see, this
Yes.
is the deviance coming. It's like you get into kink and bondage,
Yes.
and
That's
then,
right.
so
That's right.
that's where she kind of went into denigrating kink
Because
as
what happened?
coming out of weird, other
Yes. Yes.
sexualities or
That's right.
ideologies, whatever it
That's
might be.
right.
But this is, I mean, and bless her soul, I thought she was brilliant in
She
everything else
is.
she
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
But like many, even sex positive people,
That's right.
kink is still a bridge too far for them to
It is.
understand that, oh,
They
it's got to
won't.
be abused. Those women are just getting abused, and it's men who just
It's
want. It's
ridiculous.
like.
No,
It's
sorry.
a
I know a
yeah,
lot of
they've got this stupid caricature about what kink
yeah.
is, and they have no idea.
Yes. It's like with any community or anything, right? When you say black, if people say, oh, well, all black people are this way, right? Or all Asians are this way, or all trans
Right.
people are nuts now, right? So I totally get where they're coming from. And it's why it's a very delicate space to walk because I've been in the kink community. I understand it. I worked in it. I was all around it. My ex-wife was a big dominatrix. And I saw lots of things happen in those spaces between consenting adults that people would flip out if I told them. But they
Hmm.
walked away. To me, it's therapy. It's actually it's therapy. A dom going in a session. It's just the same to me as therapy. It's just a sexual type therapy that I think people don't. Again, because we live in a world where it's very, very black and white,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Well,
very.
where it can go and be powerful is when you understand how to do it in a ritual
That's
sense, where you
right.
create a ritual container,
That's right.
negotiated, then you enter the container and perform
Excellent.
in that, and then you
Excellent.
exit and go back to whatever the conditions were before that. But
Excellent.
in that container, you get to bring out these authentic,
That's
integral
right.
parts that are
That's right.
just who you are.
That's
This is
right.
why I don't use the term role play. I
Yes.
talk about it as archetypal embodiment of an
Great.
authentic persona within you.
Great.
Like
I love
I'm a
it.
dominant erotic sadist in the
Right.
kink scene. I don't
Yeah.
need to think about what am I going to say, what am I going to do. I'm just present
It
in the
just,
moment, and
that's right.
whatever happens,
That's right.
it'll come to me. I know it'll show up, and
That's right.
if my intention is to be a dominant erotic sadist, I got endless
Endless
possibilities of
play.
how I
That's
might
right. But people will
engage that.
never. I've been around it for a long, as you have probably too. You just know people just won't get their head around it. It's why I was going to go back to the maps thing. I remember like a year or two ago, there was a trans man and he's studying at, so I can't remember what university. And he started putting out, I'm studying about maps. Oh my God. The whole fucking internet freaked out, X and all the people were just like, you're
Hmm.
a fucking freak. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you telling everybody that? Especially in this heated time, right? Where people are freaking out on trans. And I'm like, it was the stupidest thing you could ever done is to publicly put, to me,
Hmm.
in my opinion, because what happened was he got fired from the university. He got fired. The whole study was shut down. Yep, totally.
Wow.
Because he put it out there like, oh,
Yeah,
now it's
it's a hot
okay.
topic.
Yeah, dude, it's like the hot button. Do not talk. Just
Hmm.
because people like me,
I'm working on an article probably put out this weekend, but I
yeah,
had a paragraph or two about some things on maps,
maps.
but I just
Yeah.
kind of
Oh no,
boxed it off
people,
and said
I'm
delete.
telling you, I know I witnessed it. I'm around these people. I think your intentions are amazing, and I believe what you want to do is very smart. But if I was all you who are studying it, I would literally keep it over here for now until you can start
Yeah.
because you cannot introduce it.
I don't know enough about it to really speak to
That's
it.
right.
But
But
what's cool about this inroad that I have is I now have a population in these
yeah,
organizations that I
great,
can do a
great.
research study
That's right.
among them to start get information and
It's
data about
excellent.
what's going on
Yeah, what's
there.
going on with them? Why are they this way? And I wonder to myself, like, I can't imagine that they're okay. Like, it must suck to feel that way. It must actually suck to like be attracted to little kids and like it's wrong, but you can't control yourself. It's
Yeah.
like,
And
and
no, just you talking about it not being one, what happens if you actually said, "Oh,
that,
I'm,"
yes,
you
yes,
know,
you're
fuck, you're
fucked.
never going to say that
Never are you
anywhere.
gonna say that. Nobody. There's nobody that's gonna be okay with it. Like, unless you're a researcher or you're like, you know what I mean? But you can't ever even like talk about it because it's like the worst thing you could actually be on some level, besides a serial killer. I think it's even above a serial killer. I actually do. I think
Yeah, serial killers kill these guys when they get into prison.
that's right. That's exactly right, Fred. So it's so I had this I always have a lot of psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever contact me, and I just recently had a group in Colorado contact me. It's a therapy group, or they have an organization there in Colorado, and they want to start doing a research on detransitioners because there isn't a lot of
Mm,
research, and they're really looking to start to
yeah,
figure out how to.
great.
And yes, and I'm just like, oh my God, like
There's no money for detransitioning either. You get
none.
all this money to get
Oh,
transitioned, but
it's
nothing to get
sick.
detransitioned.
It's actually sick. Like you really, they're willing to fucking sell you this whole fucking car, but the car breaks down. It's tough shit. It's your problem, dude. I'm just like,
Mm,
what? How? So people are like really starting to study these kinds of things, but I do think the study of maps is very important, and I do think that they do need to be looked at and understood in a way that, why are people doing this kind of stuff, and why are we having all of a sudden this huge influx of trans people? How did this happen and where? And it's, well, you said it earlier, but it just seems so weird to me that it's just a bunch of older men who are obviously fetishizing this female space and kind of getting into it. And because these used to be the cross dressers and now they're trans women, right? In my opinion.
yeah, it's a very complicated
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
somewhat sinister something going
Sinister.
on
That's right.
behind
That's right.
the bottom of it. I think these billionaire guys like the Pritzkers from Illinois and some of these other people who
That's
seem to
right.
have been throwing the money in
Oh my
and
God.
promoting,
Oh my
letting
God.
things happen.
Oh my
Uh,
God. It's all them. It's them. It's not it's only not only them, it's also the person who owns Sirius Radio. You know that one? She's a doctor. She's a trans woman. She's like a billionaire too. She's also funding.
mhm,
And then the Wachowskis, who I have personal um the ones who did the Matrix. Um, and
mhm.
then she became that my ex-wife who was a dom was his dom, and I watched that whole thing happen, the whole transition. They're not trans. They're not. He used to come to the dungeon and cross dress, and the next thing you know, he's trans. I'm like, what? Like, so
Mhm.
it's and they're worth a lot of money, and they're all funding. They're all funding a lot of these organizations. It's actually pretty sick.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you think what's the bottom line motivation from promoting
Themself. It's a selfish,
this?
it's coming from selfishness and
Yeah,
it's
it's
coming.
validating them,
There
their
you go.
own
Bam.
truth.
That's right. It's validating them and they don't care who's going to get hurt by it because they're such narcissists. And
Hmm.
I've been around a lot of them. They're fucking total narcissists. Not only do they have so much money that they can be so narcissistic, but also their own internal fight with this thing that's going on with them. And I think, yeah, it's full on narcissism. And anyone who gets hurt, they don't really care. It's not about anybody else, about them. And sort of proving, they're trying to prove a point that you're born trans when you're not born trans. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. I believe it's something that happens, and I believe it's a disorder. I have a disorder of my brain, and I do think you
Well,
can
where
live.
did you come in
Uh,
awareness of it in your own development?
yeah, so I didn't start seeing a therapist around my transition until I was
Did you
like
start off thinking, "Oh, I'm lesbian,"
when I was a kid,
and
I wanted to be a boy. I was a full-on tomboy. And then I was an amazing
mm,
athlete, right? I was that girl. I was that tomboy girl through
uh-huh,
high school, was a sports fucking champion and everything, like totally headed towards the
uh-huh.
Olympics. I was that little, you know, I never thought I was a boy though. That's what people can't, they always call me a trans. No, I was not. I was a total fucking butch chick who I thought to myself how much easier it would be to be a boy, but I never thought I was a boy, nor did my parents ever tell me I was, right? So anyway,
But
blah
what
blah blah.
about sexually? What did
Sexually,
you
always
started?
girls. Always girls.
Mm,
I
yeah,
was full on les. And imagine in the 70s dealing with that and also being an athlete. Like, fuck, man. I was going to lose my sponsorships. You had to keep all of that. Like, you're not lesbian. Like, you know what I
was
mean?
there
Like,
a lot of though lesbian girls in the
tons.
sports
Everyone
thing?
was a lesbian, but we all kept
Yeah.
it secret until we got drunk and then we'd have sex and then we'd never talk about it again.
All right. At least lubricated the alcohol helped
Totally the
things
alcohol.
along.
Well, then I became an alcoholic and a drug addict. And then I totally fucking took a left
Yeah.
turn and fucked my whole life up. But anyways, it wasn't until I got sober and at the age of around 28, then I just started realizing like I just feel like a man. Like I want to be a man. That's what I would say. I want to be a man. That was like 30 something years ago. And then long story short, a therapist just sort of was like, well, how do we investigate this? And, and then she just said, I have gender
Did
dysphoria.
you have any awareness of other people who had the same experience?
There was no internet, thank God. And I had seen a
Hmm.
documentary with a woman who became a man. I remember that. It was like some obscure documentary. And I was like, what? You can become a man? And then that sort of kind of got the ball rolling. And then, yeah, and then I saw endocrinologist here in LA that I found in this book, and he had never worked with a woman wanting to be a man. 30 years he worked with men who wanted to be women, and I was his first trans male patient. And so I was he even called me a guinea pig. It's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, dude. Like, you want to do this? And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's all good. Same with my chest. And I found a doctor who was amazing. And everything I did was the first of these
So at about
doctors.
28, you
28.
started to research, and then you made a decision. Yeah, I'm all in
At 30, I
around
was
that
all
time.
in. At 30, I was
Yeah.
all in. All in. After 2 years of intensive therapy, she made me live as Buck. She made me just totally be this, which is what we had to do, right? We had to sort of live in this space of trying the hat on before we could
Mm.
take the next medical
Oh, brilliant. I
phase.
mean, that
Yeah,
was the good path, the right path to do
because I
it.
was I was old enough to get it and I had lived a life before. It's why I tell these kids, you've got to live some life. This is irreversible. You're never going back to look like a girl again. If I change my mind, I'm never going back to living that way again, ever. Never would I, but I was old enough to make
Hmm.
these very adult, very, very adult solid choices, right? Like it's not lightly. You should never be taking this so lightly. That's what scares me about this whole thing. I had health problems from it. I lost my whole reproductive system from atrophy and just medical problems that nobody knew were going to happen. And it just blows my mind that we would just be so flippant, right? Just so flippant about giving a 16-year-old testosterone in the mail and telling her to go to YouTube and learn how to inject it. What?
Yeah. By
Wow.
another 16-year-old who's the expert showing you
There
what
you
to
go.
do.
There you go. It's like going to therapy with your friend and your guy giving each other therapy because you learned it from the internet.
Hmm.
It's the
Right.
same
Oh, he's an
fucking shit.
influencer. He knows what he's doing.
Oh no,
That's the
I see the
standard
kids.
now of
I see them all the
qualification.
time on the fucking TikTok shooting. Yeah, oh no, dude, you do it like this. And this one kid got so sick he got liver like disease. And now I'm like, yeah, but that's because you're like over fucking injecting testosterone, like with nobody watching you. And it's
Hmm.
so absurd. It's like giving kids crack and just go for it, kiddo. Like, try it. So
Yeah.
sick.
I mean, I really I hope you continue, and I hope this movement continues
We
to
will.
bring about
We will.
care for the kids. Above all, do no harm, as the old
That's right.
saying
Thank
goes.
you. Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Let's stay connected to each other. And, anything you need from me, whatever I can help you with, I'd be very happy to. I love connecting with cool people like you. And thanks for doing the work and thanks for caring about community. It really means a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm happy we finally connected, and I appreciate the invitation to connect in with
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm shoulder to shoulder with you
Right
on
on.
this
Right on.
movement across the board of sexuality is. I think of sexuality's been the bastard of human personality for thousands of
Yes.
years,
That's
and it's
right.
finally time to welcome it to the table as an
Oh my
integral
God.
part of being a human, just like intellect, creativity,
Of
spirit, and emotion.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's really what's missing in a young generation right now, too. We've sort of shamed people around it or just shutting it down. It's like it's really, that really helped me a lot coming into my own sexuality and experimenting with myself sexually. It really did. It worked. It really
Well, that
made
brings
me.
up another quick topic.
Yeah.
We'll maybe save it for another time, but the idea of what I recognize is transgender gives no information at all about someone's sexuality.
That's
So I
right.
have no idea what sexuality is there. I mean, I'd be curious, what
Yes,
is the sexuality
that's right.
of the population that says I'm transgender or queer?
Great
What
question.
exactly are you up
Great.
to?
Yeah, they don't care. They don't. That's one of my major things I did when I first like kind of got into my transition. I created a whole like space around trans men and pornography, and I really did create this. And I started, and I didn't, which I would love to send you. I did a documentary like 20 years ago, interviewing a bunch of trans men about their sexuality. And the thing that's going to blow your mind with this, and I will totally share it with you, it
That'd be
became a
great.
huge it became a huge documentary. It went to all over the world because nobody was talking about it, especially back then. Majority of the guys like me were all attracted to women before, so they were all gay women, right? And through the transition of taking testosterone, they all started to sort of look at men, including myself, sexually. And then, we just got into the space and the stories are quite fascinating. All of
Mm,
us all of
hmm.
us are pretty like in the same way that it just happened to us and the testosterone somehow changed our view, but today you don't see that. Today something else is happening and they're not necessarily talking about themselves sexually, and I'm a
Or
little bit
almost
concerned.
asexual has become
That's
the
right.
thing.
That's right. That's right. Why is that? Why how is that even possible? Like sexuality is a really innate part of a human being.
Yeah, it forever. I mean, it doesn't suddenly just change
That's
like
right.
that for
Doesn't.
no reason.
It does. And then my conclusion for myself and for some of the guys was that it was the testosterone heightened my libido. And then I just loved masculinity. So being around men in this masculine space. But I realized, it's just this sort of, what would you call it? Sort of like skimmed over. It's not really deep. Where I really am attracted to women emotionally, sexually. Even though I did try to this space with men, it just never clicked the way it does sort of with women. So I really tried it on, but I realized it's not real. It's
Mm.
the testosterone doing something to me. And if does that make sense? Like it's just something that happened through the hormones.
Well, it makes sense in the sense of your own awareness of what was happening and what was
Yeah.
true for you and what really
Yeah.
felt right and wasn't
Yeah.
quite
It
in
wasn't.
there. But it also kind of maybe reflects on this idea of masculine and feminine is it's a
That's
real
right.
thing. You know,
Yes.
masculine is its own individual.
Yes.
100% of all the thousands, millions of things that go into combine to make that
That's
is much
right.
different than what is in a female. And like in
That's right.
yourself, you have a psychological affinity for masculinity that you get it. You've been a tomboy. I mean, you
Yes.
got all the stuff and, you can feel that. I can get out there and fuck her,
That's
mix it
right.
up with
That's right.
people,
That's
which is a
right.
very masculine thing. And so I think
Yeah.
that's the lack of, there is no precision or there is no like binary, male, female. It's
That's
it's
right.
this kind of it's got a lot of fluidity or
It
each has,
does.
it's like the yin yang, like within
Yes.
each element of the yin yang is the other
That's
element,
right.
and there's a somehow there's a range. There's some people it's got a lot of the other element and they're
Yes.
almost can be similar
That's
to
right.
the other gender, but it still is not, I think the bottom line is if you impregnate, you're a male. If you get pregnant, you're a female.
Pretty simple, dude.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Like, yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm not a dude. I'm not a man. I'm actually a female. Looks like a dude, wants to walk the world as a
Mm,
dude, but I'm actually really a female. And it just fucks with the trans community because they're like, you're a traitor. I'm like, dude, what? You're
yeah.
not changing your sex. Just so you know, you go on. I'm 32 years on testosterone. You can keep thinking that way, but it's just mind
Yeah.
blowing to me how fucking stupid they become.
Well,
I
I hope you don't get wore out or hope you get breaks in there to rejuvenate
have an
because
awesome
the
life.
shit that comes on from
I
people
shut
like
it
that
down.
can,
I literally shut
mm,
it down and I go and hang out with my family and you know what I mean, do all the other kind of shit.
cool.
But thank you, friend. Let's stay in touch with each other and
You bet.
I appreciate your friendship a lot. Thank you. And we'll
You
talk
bet. Talk
later. Okay.
to you
Bye.
till
Bye.
then. Bye.
Bye.